All right, good evening, everyone. We are offering Spanish interpretation for this meeting. So if you are joining us virtually and would like to listen to the meeting in Spanish, please find and click the interpretation button on the bottom of your screen. All right, thank you for joining us tonight for the McKinley Street Grade Separation Project Update Meeting via Zoom and those who may be joining us on the phone. My name is Matt Evans. I am on the public outreach team for the project and will be serving as tonight's moderator. Joining me tonight to share some project updates will be Juliana Zaleski, the city's associate engineer, Josh Cosper and Darren Johnson. They are both program managers at Mark Thomas, the city's program management consultant. And I also have with me Ashley Zaragoza, who represents the city's economic development department. This meeting is being recorded and it will be posted to the project website. All attendees joining us will be muted and your cameras will remain off for the entirety of the meeting. If you are joining us via Zoom, you do have the opportunity to submit questions or comments using the Q&A button on your screen at any time during the meeting. And if you are joining us on the phone, you may also submit your questions by emailing our project email, which is mckinley.gs@coronaca.gov. Again, that is mckinley.gs@coronaca.gov. And then during our Q&A session, we will do our best to answer as many questions as possible. For the agenda for tonight's meeting, we will be making about a 25 to 30-minute presentation. We will begin with a brief project overview. We'll discuss all things construction, including recent construction activities, some updates to steel fabrication and current staging and detours. We'll take a look at future construction activities, and the city's economic development department will highlight some of the business support program efforts before we conclude with an update on our public outreach. And then, as I mentioned before, we'll jump into a Q&A session, and we look forward to being able to answer some of your questions. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead now and turn it over to Juliana with the City of Corona. Juliana.
Thank you, Matt. All right, let's do a quick run through of the project improvements. So most of you who have seen this slide before, so we'll keep it quick, but for those who haven't seen it, this is the project configuration in the after condition. McKinley Street will be a 4-lane facility, 2 lanes in each direction. Magnolia Avenue is on the left side of the slide and the 91 freeway is on the right side with Sampson down the middle. In this rendering, you can see the SR 91 to the upper right and Estelle Street to the lower left side. This is a view looking northwesterly toward the bridge. In this rendering, you can see a good view of the steel network arch bridge looking westerly. It is a lightweight structure that can be built in a staging area and moved into place overnight, which we expect to occur early next year. This is a great view looking southwesterly where you can see some of the retaining walls. And as you can see, they will have the dot pattern as previously presented. Here's a good view looking northeasterly where you can see the McKinley Street southbound side ramp connecting to Sampson Avenue. This is a good view of and close-up of the bridge looking southbound over the bridge. Let's do a quick fly through from our drone footage shot earlier in May. So one of the big achievements late last year was completing the third-party utility relocation efforts. Let's quickly go over what those look like. Here's an aerial looking northwest over the Estelle intersection from last summer. You can see the poles highlighted in yellow, and overhead electrical lines have been removed and undergrounded. We also have gas, electric, and public utilities have completed their underground work, shown in yellow right here. And Riverside Public Utilities relocated the remaining water line improvements here noted in yellow. So what do we have left? We have miscellaneous rates to grade adjustments to manholes and vault structures during construction. We also have sewer water line work associated with both the city of Corona and the Western municipal facilities. And lastly, we have some closeout for utility agreements. I'm going to turn this over to Josh Cosper with Mark Thomas to talk about some additional recent construction activities. Josh?
Thanks, Juliana. So what have we built lately? Well, along the east side, we recently completed both piles late last year. And then the contractor recently completed some of the column erection for the rebar cage we'll go over as well. So here's a good picture of the rebar cage associated with each column. And here's a good picture where the crane is actually lifting it up. Here's another good picture. And then this is a good picture of it getting dropped into place. And then kind of lastly, here's what it looks like ready for the actual construction. On the west side, we recently completed both piles earlier this year as well. Here's a good view, as you just saw in the drone footage, with all the rebar cages above the ground from the recent drone footage. So you can see them highlighted here in yellow. So here's basically some ground views of the columns. The one in the upper left is north of Sampson, and the one in the lower right is south of the railroad tracks. So we've also recently removed the sign at Carl's Jr. earlier this year. We're currently working with Shell and Arco to get their new signs installed as well. That's in the process. And so kind of lastly on the miscellaneous project improvements, we are nearly complete with a 15-inch sewer line installation north of Sampson. Able to get it basically flowing for most of it now, as it would be in the after condition as of today. Here's a couple photos of recent construction. You can see the tight quarters and the confine the contractor has to work within. One challenge that we always face with these kind of facilities is to weave through existing utilities. And then the main item remaining in this is really just the permanent connection upstream at the 91 interchange intersection. So lastly, we're getting ready to install underground water system improvements and retaining wall improvements, but we'll discuss that in a little more detail later in the presentation. So, what you don't get to see is the amount of work in the fabrication of the steel bridge. We've actually been pretty concerned on the fabrication process and the timelines. So we actually worked with the contractor to visit the site May 1st up at their Vancouver, Washington plant, where actually much of the bridge is being fabricated currently. So normally this is where I'd like to have this epic slow motion walk in with action music, but we'll have to settle for still picture and silence. And then here's a good mandatory group picture. But all jokes aside, let's talk about how this process works and what's being done currently. So in this picture, you'll see the 4 bays in which our contractor's currently performing the work. They're highlighted in yellow. And so really it starts with the initial processing of the raw plate steel. So you can see the salmon color is the current bay where that was occurring. So in this, large plate steel is rolled into these progressive rollers to be cut to specific sizes or shapes, or have drilling or other components to it to support connections and joints. So this is a good picture of a progressive plate processing drill line. You can see another one right here. And then this picture that you'll see is the plasma cutter. It actually it helps to get the angled cuts and some of the shapes needed. And then lastly, here's a petting house machine that also cuts, drills, and welds components. And so ultimately, as we get to the picture here, you can see much of the miscellaneous parts like stiffeners and supports that'll be welded into the beams and the structural members. So, once these pieces are all cut and processed, they're ready for the welding and assembly in the bay you see in salmon again. Salmon's my color choice. And so let's talk about the primary components that really make the backbone of the bridge. So the most important bridge component, as it serves as the primary connection point, are the knuckles. These tie the arch ribs along the top that provide vertical suspension to the floor beams and the support diaphragm that support the decking. You can see them in orange. There are 4 total. This is a bird's eye view of the bridge, 2 on the north side, 2 on the south side. And these really transfer the loads to the columns and the bridge foundation. So here's a good picture of what they look up close. And you can get just a picture of just how difficult these are to assemble inside and outside. And so here's really a picture of what they look like on the inside. There's dozens of stiffeners, the rectangular plates that you see inside. In each one they require extensive welding, cleaning, smoothing after completion. Oops. All right. And so here's a good video of just some of what you see as the final cleaning and fine tuning after the welds are complete. All right, and so perfect. So one of the challenges we have is actually having to move them with the giant gantry cranes that you see, the overhead yellow cranes. So often you'll have in these bays areas for initial welds, and you're going to move it over to the area where it's going to be cleaned and kind of, fine-tuned and whatnot. And so here's another quick video of just kind of seeing how that works. So it's a, not a quick process to move everything around like you're working in your normal garage. So, another really important component is the tie girders, as it's really the backbone to the decking or diaphragm support system. They run longitudinally along the bridge, as you can see in orange. This is the same bird's eye view from the previous knuckle discussion. So here's a good picture to show you one of the tie girders as a finished product. Because the bridge is about 300 feet long, these are created in segments long enough to be transported on a flatbed bed. So it involves a lot of miscellaneous fittings along each tie girder. So here's another one with some of the support diaphragm connections in place. And then here, this should give you perspective of just how big they are compared to the average person. And so really the last real important piece to discuss is the arch ribs. You can see them in orange on the elevation view of the bridge here. These are important as they're kind of the main source of vertical suspension with the cable hanger system to the bridge and the floor diaphragm, or the bridge. And so ultimately, they're in the works right now, being processed from the plate steel, to steel beams and structural members. Here's a good picture in the bottom left there of the current pieces that'll be cut and welded in the next couple of months. Before we move on to the next deal, talking to the fabricator, Thompson Metal Fabricator, they had indicated this is the biggest bridge of an arch they'd ever worked on, and they do quite a bit on the West Coast. It was maybe the second biggest bridge, in the last 20 to 25 years. But, this is a bridge fabricator that works on, hundreds of bridge projects. And so I gave you kind of the magnitude of the size of this bridge and the after condition. All right, as these pieces get finished, they get ready for primed and painting. So here's a picture where the bay, in Salmon, where that's going to occur. And, although these aren't for our project, you can start to get a sense of the areas they'll create with kind of zones or buffers or kind of area with the plastic and the temporary walls. Here's another picture in the bay as well. And lastly, just kind of more pictures. And so it becomes to be pretty extensive painting process as it gets close to kind of final progressive assembly. So then, this isn't endless room, even though these are pretty massive. So often what they have to do to make room for the assembly is, many of these pieces will be moved out for temporary storage. So, as slow as it was on the gantry crane, you'd actually have to put it on a flatbed and move it back in and set up room. And so here's a good picture of some of the tie girders that are out there currently for our project. And one of the mobile gantry cranes. And then, really, this is one of the last steps as they, get ready to ship it down south. They'll get ready to do what's called a progressive assembly. This involves taking all of the pieces and getting them into, basically 1 to 2 of the bays, and effectively assembling the entire bridge under controlled temperature and survey and oversight conditions. It's like a last check to make sure that everything fits as they were intended and, fits to the exact dimensions. And so this information is provided to the prime contractor, where they're going to actually use it to assemble the bridge on site later in the year and get ready for that bridge move and erection early next year. So now I'm gonna turn it over to Darren Johnson with Mark Thomas, also to discuss detours and next steps.
Thanks, Josh. We know that it's hard, looking at a little map in these presentations. So we wanted to spend a little more time during this meeting, just talking about things we've done to help with detouring traffic around the project area. So first, we recommend checking the project's website. You can see it up here on the top of the slide, McKinleyupdates.com. There's a good story map there where we update traffic control changes, the traffic patterns. We want to help you be aware of what these changes are. So check out McKinleyupdates.com. The project also sends out bi-weekly construction alerts and text message notifications to the public, and it's designed to make you aware of project updates and traffic control changes. So what else have we done on the traffic and detouring side? It starts with significantly more advanced warning signs. We added signs along Hidden Valley, Magnolia, Sampson, Promenade. And that's to help encourage traffic to detour around the project areas. We also moved and changed the messaging on the changeable message signs further in advance to help better guide drivers. These signs don't really show it or look like they don't look like they're working, but it's because cameras don't take good pictures of these signs. But believe me, they are working. We've also added signage that restricts trucks between Magnolia and McKinley, and that again is to help reduce congestion. And then we've also hand-delivered customized truck detour notifications and maps to businesses within the project area. This is a type of information that we also push through the project's website and through biweekly notifications. Additionally, we've updated and prepared customized detour maps and instructions that were also posted to the project's website, and we send it out to the public through the project's social media. And then we're currently working on exhibits that'll help guide drivers to the businesses north of State Route 91. We're currently talking to the property management group and business owners on how to best distribute these throughout the shopping centers. So what are some of the upcoming construction activities? There's going to be significant water and storm drain construction. You can see in this picture in the upper right, that's an actual 30-inch water line, and you can see the size of it, you know, compared to the people that are standing next to it working on it. In the lower right-hand corner is a good picture of actually how it's going to be constructed, and it involves large trench box because, as you can see, these lines are fairly deep. You'll also start to see retaining walls go up. So here's a picture at the top of a similar view to what our retaining walls will look like when they're finished. And then the pictures at the bottom are of temporary retaining walls that will be built next to traffic. These particular walls in this picture are actually of the current Hamner Avenue Bridge that's just north of the Santa Ana River. They're similar to what ours is going to look like. Our project will build these walls, and then they'll later be buried or removed when traffic gets shifted to the new roadway that's currently being built. And then also we'll continue fabrication, as Josh was mentioning. As the bridge fabrication is complete, you'll see pieces get delivered on site on, with large flatbed trucks, similar to what you see in the picture there in the upper right. And once it's fabricated on site, the bridge will be placed on self-propelled modular transports, similar to what you see in the lower right-hand corner there. And here's a picture of a smaller tied arch bridge that's being constructed in Detroit, and it's in the process of being moved. As you can see in the picture, our bridge will be moved over a couple of weekends. The first weekend will be to cross Sampson and the Channel, and the next weekend will be to move it into place. So these are some pictures that are similar to what you can expect to see out here in the next several months. And now I'm going to turn it over to Ashley Zaragoza to talk about the city's support through their economic development department. Ashley?
Thank you, Darren. Next slide, please. So we've been very proactive in our outreach to McKinley. So whether this has been through phone calls, emails, in-person visits, we've connected with over 78 businesses. Of those businesses, a little over 10 expressed interest in receiving some type of support. This includes things such as marketing. So we've done business spotlights. We've completed 4 thus far and 4 are underway. And the images here are some of the ones that we either have completed or are working towards. We have a newsletter that goes out to over 14,000 subscribers. And so it's a really great opportunity to showcase your business, to highlight all the great opportunity there. And then what's great about that as well is we share the detour websites that were previously shared during this presentation. So what's really great is that customers are now expecting this ahead of time and understanding the different ways to get to these specific businesses. And so again, we're really trying to find opportunity in order to be able to connect them. So whether it's continuing to have conversations, connecting them with grant opportunities, and actually the next slide, I'll go into more detail about what those services could look like and in case you would like to tap into them. So the first, as I mentioned, was the monthly newsletter. We do a shopping center spotlight. So again, it can be depending on where in McKinley you're off of. But we also do social media posts, again, just different ways to market your business. And this is all absolutely free. It's your taxpayer dollars at work, making sure that we're including you on those newsletters or social media posts. We also do workforce support, so subsidized training opportunities or ways that we can connect you with the workforce that you may have, or workforce needs that you may have. We're also having a job fair on May 20th, in which we're helping connect our local employers to our local workforce. We also have funding opportunities. So while the city currently doesn't have grants, we do have partners that we work with. So there were some dedicated towards restaurants, there's some dedicated towards different types of businesses, manufacturers, whatever the case may be. We try to connect you with those opportunities. So internally, we will have a grant later this year that's going to be open for all City of Corona businesses. But we definitely encourage you to reach out. And should there be a grant that's available, for example, through our Riverside County Office of Economic Development, we want to be able to make those connections immediately. In addition, Riverside County also has a business assistance now program. So again, if there's dollars that they can tap into, we want to make sure we're having those conversations, making those connections. And then we also work with Small Business Administration, again, different types of entities to making sure that if we don't have funds in-house that we can connect you with, that we are connecting you with our partners. And again, trying to find different opportunities, access to capital, ways to really connect and support our business community here, especially with the McKinley area. And with that, I'd like to pass it along to Sabat, who's going to go into more detail about public outreach and next steps.
So I will take it over from
Absolutely.
Sabat. It'll be, thank you, Ashley. I'll take it over from here.
Yeah,
So
Juliana,
let's
thank
talk
you.
about our public outreach. Oh, no problem. Let's talk about our public outreach for the project. So we've conducted numerous in-person and virtual public outreach meetings, including the most recent one, which was on January 24th earlier this year. The next meeting will be sometime in the fall of this year and will be in person. And then we'll also continue implementing the text program. We have over 440 people subscribing to it. If you want to join, just text McKinley to 844-518-1409 to stay in the loop on the project. We'll continue sending out bi-weekly construction alerts and outreach notices throughout the city's social media and project email, updating on look-aheads and achievements thus far. We'll continue active monitoring of the project hotline and email, and we'll continue with updates to the interactive web-based map showing anticipated traffic detours and lane closures, so you can stay in the loop on those. And the map is posted on the city's website and can also be found on the mckinleyupdates.com website. And lastly, we will continue with our routine aerial drone, time-lapse, and other photography throughout the construction of the project to share with the public. And I'll now turn it over to Matt to begin our Q&A session.
Great, thank you, Juliana. So as you've heard, we will now go ahead and transition into the Q&A portion of the meeting. So if you are joining us on the Zoom platform, you may submit your questions now through the Q&A button on your screen. As a reminder, we won't be taking any verbal questions tonight, and all questions will remain anonymous. If you are joining us by phone, you also have a chance to chime in by joining us and emailing us your questions to mckinley.gs@coronaca.gov. And as a reminder, we will do our best to answer as many questions as possible tonight. So with that said, we have already begun receiving a few questions, so please allow us a few moments to process those before answering live. I'll go ahead and ask the first question here, though. This one, Juliana, I think you'd be the best one to answer this one. It's, why is traffic at Magnolia funneled down to one lane going north? It slows down when people need to make left and right turns.
Yes, I totally understand. So we have a plan that will open up a left, a right, and a through lane. Currently, it was supposed to be striped last week, but the rains and the process, we just delayed it. And so we're working with Walsh to get that on the schedule. There's a real backup with these striping contractors right now. And so, but we believe we should be able to get that done in the next couple of weeks. As we start to progress into future phases, the traffic later in the year, we'll have to continue monitoring the solution, as this particular plan only works with the current construction phase.
Thank you, Juliana. The next one we have here is about the budget. Is the project staying within the approved budget? For that one, let's go to Darren.
Yeah, currently we're actually projecting to be just under the approved budget. And we're going to continue to work with the contractor, coming up with ideas, work with the construction management consultant and look for ways that we can, hopefully stay within that budget. But right now we are projecting to stay just under the approved budget.
Great. Thank you, Darren. The next question is about the bridge move. So this one I'll pass back over to Juliana. And the question is, when will we see the bridge start to get moved into place?
So you'll be seeing the bridge being assembled in the contractor's yard where the old Outback and the Denny's were located, probably late fall of this year. And then depending on where in the fall that takes place and the fourth quarter restrictions with the railroad and BNSF, the bridge will likely be moved into place later this year or early next year.
Thank you. Darren, I'm going to pass this one to you as well. When will Estelle Street intersection be closed and when do you expect it to start?
So Estelle will probably be closed sometime late this year or early next year. We're actually working with the contractor now. We anticipate that it'll be up to 3 months for the closure from start to finish. But the great thing about this closure is that it will help accelerate the construction of the entire project in this area anyways by approximately 3 months and minimize some of the surrounding businesses and driveway closures. So yeah, late this year, early next year is when that'll get started.
Thank you, Darren. Juliana, back to you. This one is asking, who can I contact during construction?
Okay, so there will not be a specific person to contact. However, our construction management firm, Falcon Engineering, has a project dispatch number separate from the city's hotline for the project and email. And so the phone number for their dispatch is 951-582-3793. And so once again, let me say that again in case anybody missed it, 951-582-3793. And so if you call that number, that they will be able to respond to that. Don't text that number, it's a phone only. And so if you need to write an email, the email for that is going to be mckinleyproject@falcon-ca.com. So that's mckinleyproject@falcon-ca.com. And so we have passed that information out to the tenants in the area on site. And however, if you'd like to contact or request a contact for that, please send your request or questions or reach out to the project hotline and we will provide you a digital copy of the card if you would like that. So our CM team is on site and they are the best to answer any questions.
Thank you, Juliana. Next one, Darren, I'll pass this back over to you. This question is, how is the city dealing with the impacted businesses and property owners?
Yeah, of the original 15 property owners, we've actually reached full settlement with 12 of them. And we're working towards mediation with the remaining 3 property owners. Also, out of the 20 to 30 business owners that are directly impacted by the project, we're down to about 5 or so that we haven't settled with yet. We're hoping that by the end of the year, we'll be able to reach deals with these remaining property owners. And Ashley, I don't know if you want to maybe talk a little bit more about what the city's doing with economic development support and any of that you might want to add.
Absolutely. So as mentioned previously, we really have tried to make that effort to connect in person or over the phone, for example, and just making sure that we're understanding the needs of the community and whether it's visibility, again, improving customer flow. So those are really the predominant ways that we've been able to support through economic development, or if there have been grant opportunities through our partner agencies, we've been able to connect in that capacity as well. But again, it's just making sure that the business owners are well informed on our services here through economic development, specifically how we're able to market free of cost, and then also keeping you on our listserv for when we do have the small business grants that will go out later this year towards all City of Corona businesses. It is going to be an application process, but you will be one of the first ones to know. So everyone we've been able to connect with, we have an email. And that's really where we've been able to offer these opportunities. And then, of course, through these public meetings, we're again able to connect with the businesses and understand what those needs look like.
Thank you, Ashley and Darren. Josh, I want to make sure you get involved here, so I'll pass this question off to you next. The question is, why was the left turn lane from northbound McKinley to westbound Magnolia in front of the Corpus Christi Church closed?
I think when we looked at it during the design phase, it was something where it looked like a kind of quasi safety, and also that there wasn't a lot of traffic movement on it. And so we were, at the time, it was trying to funnel the traffic basically in the through only. So when this became somewhat of an evident problem in one of our last traffic control shifts, we went to the drawing board, looked at it again, and effectively, as we just answered above or previously, been in the works of trying to get it back in, at least through the current stages. As we move into future stages, though, it's going to create kind of alignment issues or safety issues potentially of how it gets into westbound Magnolia. And so we'll likely have to look at that and see if there's other options to minimize during some of the later phases of construction.
Thank you, Josh. The next question we have here is, what are you doing to monitor traffic and safety? For that, I'll pass it to Juliana.
Yeah, so we have on-site inspections throughout the day for the signage and traffic control to ensure it's being maintained from any inadvertent damage or things like delineators getting knocked over or anything like that. The idea is to make sure that we repair and maintain these devices daily with our contractor. From an evolution standpoint, we're constantly watching patterns to see what changes and what we can implement for the better. And so we actively implement these changes where we can. But these changes do not happen overnight as much as we'd love them to. It takes time to analyze the changes, what has to be done, what can be done, and work with the contractor to get that scheduled and installed. And so we also routinely notify the public on new patterns through the public notifications, the city's website, personal drop-offs on site, and texts to those who are registered. So lastly, we also do have workshops with Caltrans and RCTC who are actively working on other projects in the area, like the 91. We all know about the 9171 new project. And so we coordinate closures and timing with them to minimize impacts as best as we can.
Thank you, Juliana. Josh, I'll get this back over to you. And for this question, it's approximately how long will the on-site steel fabrication last?
That's a good question, since I'm Mr. Steele here today. So actually, it's going to be somewhere between 4 to 8 weeks, depending on weather and temperature and all that stuff. Likely closer to the 8 than the 4, especially because it'll be towards the end of the year, and we might be battling weather, but it will be something very neat to see. So, if you do have a chance to look at it, not that you can get in the construction area, but it'll be neat to take a quick look at it, because it's very rare you'll ever see a bridge of this magnitude, especially in California.
Thank you, Josh. Darren, I think this is a good question for you. And the question is, when the bridge is installed, how will the traffic be controlled into the McKinley shopping center? This person wants to know because their business may be impacted due to this construction.
Okay. Yeah, essentially the access there at Estelle and McKinley is going to be exactly the same after the project is constructed as it was before. There'll be, all 4 legs of the intersection. There'll be a traffic signal there. The only real difference is there's was a driveway between Estelle and the railroad tracks, and that driveway is going to be moved to between Magnolia and Sampson. So it should be very similar in the after condition.
Thank you, Darren.
Mm-hmm.
The next question is about our project schedule. So Juliana, this question I think is best for you. When is the project expected to be completed?
So with everything we know right now, bridge fabrication, everything like that, we're looking at early to mid next year for completion.
Thank you, Juliana. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to submit those using the Q&A button on your screen. If you're joining us via phone, you can also email us those questions, mckinley.gs@coronaca.gov. We'll do our best to answer as many questions as possible. We're here till 7. So if you do have additional questions, feel free to, again, check out our website, mckinleyupdates.com. Take a look around. If you do have any questions that come to mind, please let us know. We're happy to answer them. Again, you can use the Q&A function there on your screen via Zoom. And if you're more comfortable emailing those questions, you may also do so, mckinley.gs@coronaca.gov. We are receiving some more questions here, so I'm just going to give it about a minute for us to process some of these additional questions. All right, Josh, I think this one's good for you. Will there be any additional full freeway closures?
Oh, I hope not. No, from what we know right now in our area, it isn't anticipated. So, yeah, we'll have closures at the off ramp temporarily for miscellaneous construction, but not like we saw early this year. That was just the collision of a couple of projects. But as of right now, we're, as Juliana just talked about a few questions ago, we're working with Caltrans RCTC regularly in task force meetings, and we don't see any in the near future, the long-term future, that would impact our project.
Thank you, Josh. We also do send out bi-weekly construction alerts, and we are in close contact to some of the neighboring projects in our area. So when there are any closures on those projects, if you are signed up for those construction alerts, we do include those closures in our alerts as well. And again, you can sign up for all those construction alerts by visiting mckinleyupdates.com. So again, if you do have any remaining questions, please feel free to do so. And of course, if we've done a great job at answering all your questions and it seems like we're not getting any additional ones, we will go ahead and provide some updates on how to stay connected to our project. So we'll give it about, I'd say about a couple more minutes. If we don't receive any additional questions, we'll move forward with the presentation. We are receiving another question here. Let's allow us an opportunity to file this and address it. And again, thank you for your questions. We are very happy to answer them. Okay. Josh, I think this is probably another one for you to answer regarding the contractor here. So will the contractor be rewarded if they finish the project earlier than anticipated?
No, and that's the short answer. But the long answer is early on when we, it's called an incentive program. There's pros and cons to it. We actually heavily evaluated that as well as kind of other mechanisms on trying how to accelerate it. It's just they don't pan out well unless they're just incredibly super mega projects. And this isn't in the threshold, even though it's a massive project for this area of where the incentives typically work. They also kind of work adversely sometimes to the agencies too, because you spend more time fighting over every little thing that comes up in the contracts instead of kind of and trying to make sure they get every way to try to get that incentive, but still find ways to do delays. And so it's just, this wasn't the right project for it. Really to help try to keep things on schedule. It's the routine management, it's the value engineering, it's the partnership meetings we're conducting with them. It's looking at every little time or cost savings we can do and getting the contractor and working with them. We probably have, 2-3 meetings a day and at least some discussions and focused on that. And so that's the long answer.
Thank you, Josh. Okay, I'll give it about a minute or two for any remaining questions that you may have. And we do have some more rolling in here. This is great. Thank you so much. All right, this one I'll give to Darren. It appears that this person's curious about sort of maybe if the bridge will be retroactive for earthquakes. Can you maybe elaborate on that, Darren?
You bet. Everything in California is designed to meet, earthquake standards. And so all the design criteria, everything that gets followed by the engineers, like I said, is meeting all of the latest Caltrans earthquake standards. Those standards actually get updated from time to time. Every time there is a significant earthquake, we learn something more as an engineering community and enhance the design criteria that much more. So yes, simple answer is it will absolutely be designed for earthquakes and meet all of the latest earthquake criteria that's required.
Thank you, Darren.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next question. Let's give this one over to Juliana. So Juliana, currently there are a lot of traffic lights on McKinley around the Magnolia Shopping Center. There's one before the railroad. Will there be less traffic lights when the project is finished, and will they be sequenced so that traffic can flow more fluently?
Yes. So short answer is yes. The grade separation does eliminate the one light where it's specifically at the railroad track. So technically, yes, one less light in that location. But yes, the entire corridor is going to be interconnected, and sequencing is going to be included to make traffic flow as fluid as possible in the after and final condition.
Thank you, Juliana. All right, we'll give it one more minute. If you do have any remaining questions, again, you can use the Q&A function, or you may email us. All right, we're going to go ahead and conclude the Q&A portion of our meeting tonight. So we do encourage everyone to utilize the several ways to stay connected to our project, and they are shown here on the next slide. You can reach us via project email, the project website, through our project helpline number here on the screen. You may also text us by texting the word McKinley to 844-518-1409. And as we've mentioned before, we also encourage you to explore our interactive map, which will be the place to be if you're looking for the latest construction alerts, live lane closures, and we also include some progress photos. Again, you can find that at mckinleyupdates.com. That concludes our meeting for this evening. Thank you and have a great night.